What's good, everybody out there on YouTube? This is your man SHADIC dropping some hot frog on this mic. Sorry I haven't been making content. I've been busy, you know. College is really busy and I just don't have time. I'm gonna try to make like shorter videos that are, you know, pretty decently put together, but for right now I'm just gonna have to do this. I'm gonna have some like background music on it. It's not gonna be super specific to whatever I'm playing or watching or whatever, but today we're gonna be talking about Spider-Man PS4, more specifically reviewing it. Here I'm gonna tell you that your opinion about the game is garbage and mine is right, but on the real though, I'm just gonna tell you how I feel about the game and overall in general how it fits into I guess the ecosystem or the entirety of gaming. So let's begin.
Here I go. All right, bring it on.
Alright guys, this is man SHADIC dropping some hot frog on this mic. I'm so sorry. But on the real, I want to talk about Spider-Man's PS4's gameplay first. It says Spider-Man's PS4. But Spider-Man PS4's gameplay is pretty great. The first thing I kind of want to talk about is the combat, because I feel like this is something that's quite overlooked in the grand scheme of things because people focus a lot on the web slinging, because that's really the most important part of any Spider-Man game's gameplay. If the web swinging isn't good, why, like, what are you doing? Why are you making a Spider-Man game? My favorite Spider-Man games have been Ultimate Spider-Man and Spider-Man 2 because the web swinging is just so great. And it makes a majority of it feels like the majority of the gameplay is just web swinging, and not in a bad way. It doesn't feel like the gameplay just breaks down to web swinging. It just feels like, since web swinging is so core to Spider-Man's gameplay and even in combat, that you feel as if it's just so instrumental to it. Any other Spider-Man game that doesn't have it automatically feels lackluster. And Spider-Man PS4 just delivers on the web swinging and the combat and the way they implement both. The first thing I gotta say, it has a similar, I guess, combat style to the Arkham series of games, even though Spider-Man 2 kind of was like the first major superhero game I remember doing this, where, you know, you had this super, I guess, flowy combat where, you know, you could move from one enemy to the next really well. You know, you could chain combos together extremely well, and the gameplay revolved around, or at least the combat portion of the gameplay revolved around you chaining combos between enemies in interesting ways, using all your, you know, gadgets and gears and just superpowers to fight off the baddies. In the case of Batman, there are no superpowers, and Spider-Man's web shooters are gadgets. I don't know, you know what I mean. But overall, the combat's really great, and it's actually better than Arkham. I feel like it's a lot more faster paced and it's more forgiving in certain circumstances than Arkham. And Arkham, like, even though you could do the little, I guess, thing where you hit the enemy with your cape and it doesn't stop your combo, there's certain times if you don't do a perfect dodge, I think it's in Arkham Knight or Arkham City, where you don't, your combo doesn't continue if you're doing just dodging randomly. And I never really liked that about Arkham, where if you just say for instance randomly hit the dodge button by accident, your combo gets stopped, because that happens to me sometimes. I got big hands. Sometimes my hand slips on the controller and I hit the dodge button. I shouldn't be penalized, or my combo shouldn't be stopped merely because I dodged. The only issue I really see with Spider-Man PS4's combat is that there's so much happening on the screen that even when you perfect dodge or you do the right thing, you still get punished. The biggest example of this is when you're fighting flying enemies and they have like 3 or 4 rockets sent your way, and then you just get hit by one of them because there are too many rockets for Spider-Man to dodge at once. Or when you get hit by a brute and you're next to a wall. Once you get hit and you touch that wall, or you just touch the ground, you're dead. Like the brute will just come at you full force. But still, it's really great. The stealth combat is also something cool. While it does feel like it's secondary to the main combat, it doesn't feel like it's tacked on. It feels like they thought about it to some degree, because you can implement it in the bases and stuff. And while I don't like how in the enemy bases that it only works for the first round, I do like that they implement it so you had, I guess, an easier way, or you got more credit points or experience or whatever for taking out enemies in a stealthy way, giving you the incentive to do so. Is it the ideal way to play? Not really, but I think it's something that's cool. And I guess if you're a fan of stealth games, like I'm a big fan of Metal Gear, I guess there's something in there for you. It's not the greatest stealth system on the planet. It's okay, but it doesn't feel tacked on. It feels like they thought about it and they implemented it well into the game. Now, I do have to say, the sections of the game where you play as non-superpowered characters, I'm not going to spoil the game for you, but most notably the Mary Jane section, since this is common knowledge now. The Mary Jane sections of the game aren't the greatest, but they're nothing that's horrendous. People are making it out to be a lot bigger of an issue than what it really was in the game. Most of the sections that you played as a non-powered character were less than like 10 minutes, and it never felt like it was a drag away from the game. It was usually something to show, oh, this person is powerless to do something in this situation. Let's see what we can do with them. Let's see what we can build up around them and show how they, as a non-superpowered person, overcomes the trials and tribulations thrown their way. And on a note of that, I want to talk about web swinging, and that doesn't connect at all, but you know, it'd be like that. Web swinging in this game is so great. I'd even go as far as to argue that it's in some ways better than Spider-Man 2. The only downfall of the web swinging, I feel, is that they don't indicate how the little burst jumps work, because sometimes you'll be web swinging and then you get a burst jump off of a building because you get this certain ability that allows you to do so. Sometimes you don't. And I feel like the trick system could have a lot more added to it. While the trick system is pretty cool, you only have about like 10 tricks that you can do. And you know, a few of them are variations of the same trick, whether you're just doing it up or down or left and right or back and forward, which I personally think they should just expand that, especially with the updates that are coming and the DLC that is coming. But with DLC, let's talk about the story, because that'll tie a little bit into one of the things I think the game genuinely did poorly. While this story is really great and it's actually pretty moving towards the end, there's not a happy ending. I'm gonna tell you that right away. It really uses the world and the characters really well. It builds off of certain characters to make Peter become even greater of a character and to show the amount of depth that he has. Peter's interactions with people are really great, and I gotta say this, Yuri Lowenthal played a great Peter. You know, I kept wanting him to say it's hero time because I kept hearing Ben, but no, this is your boy Peter. I'm not talking about Uncle Ben, I'm talking about Ben 10. But on the real, this story was so great, but its greatest shortcoming is that the game, that like Insomniac knew that when they released this game, they were going to cut content to make more money off of it. The more specifically, the way the game ends, you know that a certain character is just going to be playable as DLC. That's just the facts. They just you instantly know. There are some loose ends in the story or side quests that don't really get tied up because, oh, you gotta wait till this DLC that got announced or that's gonna be coming out a month after the game comes out releases. And that's the city that never sleeps. The greatest example of this is Black Cat. Felicia's story isn't told in this game, or at least in the base game. It won't be told till the city that never sleeps comes out. And I feel like they really missed the mark with this one, because there's a lot of content in the game, no doubt. And as a $60 game, it stands on it. Sorry about that, my camera switched off for some reason. But the biggest issue is that, you know, while this game can stand on its own, it has enough content to stand on its own and justify a $60 purchase. You can really tell that the biggest issue with this game is that it basically feeds off of bad DLC and video game practices, and I don't think that's great. I just think people should acknowledge that, and they should call out Insomniac and Sony for it. No matter how good the game is, doesn't mean it cannot be criticized for DLC practices. Let's continue. You know, I think the story was really good, and if you've enjoyed any other superhero game story, you'll really enjoy this one. It's a lot better than, and I know I'm gonna be drawing comparisons to Batman Arkham, and that's because Arkham is really one of the few superhero games to get everything right, having a good story, combat, etc. And Spider-Man PS4, I feel, is more ambitious than Arkham ever was. You know, characters die. What you do really feels like it matters. And while I can say that yes, people like die in Arkham, most notably the Joker, it doesn't feel like it has the impact that Spider-Man PS4 does. And that's the part that I guess we have to face. The last part I got to talk about is the graphics. The graphics are amazing. There's a high level of detail, and the game just really takes realism and it runs with it. Everybody looks extremely realistic. It's just one of the prettiest games I've ever played. I haven't played Shadow of the Tomb Raider yet, but I played Rise of the Tomb Raider and Rise of the Tomb Raider and Final Fantasy 15 are the two prettiest games that I've genuinely ever played, just on a detail level. And Spider-Man PS4 rivals those two games. And when I say rivals it, I mean everything down to even the NPCs that are randomly walking through the streets. They don't feel like they're just copy and paste. They feel individual, and even just the side quest NPCs, etc., have a high level of detail to them that you don't really see with most other video games. A lot of game developers just skimp out on those characters. New York is really set to be almost the one-to-one with it, with the exception of added areas from the Spider-Man universe. And honestly, I think that is great, and it's a testament to Insomniac's just, I guess, high barrier or high standard of quality, and I just love that. There aren't any performance hitches. I had one performance hitch but I only had one performance hitch in the entire game, and it's in the section where they removed puddles for that exact reason. You remember the screenshot going around before the game came out? And by the way, the game's graphics were improved. They changed the materials on Spider-Man's suit, and it looks way better than it did before. It doesn't look like a big old piece of plastic. It looks like, suit material. But in that place, there was one part where I was swinging around to chase the helicopter, and that was the only part I ever experienced a frame rate drop, and it was when I was turning the camera and I could see it through the motion blur, which, by the way, you can tone down and change, which I also like a lot. But those are my thoughts on Spider-Man PS4. Tell me how you feel about it. Tell me if you feel like it's a great game. Tell me if you feel like, it's not really the game for me. I genuinely think it's a game you should pick up, and you're doing yourself a disservice if you don't pick it up. It's really amazing, and it's one of my favorite games of all time right now. It really did leave that lasting of an impression on me. While yes, the DLC practices the game takes are horrendous, the game at its base level is phenomenal. But Insomniac, don't do that DLC crap anymore. Really, that's ridiculous. That shouldn't be a thing. But anyways, this has been your man SHADIC. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. Share this video out with your friends, and I'm out of here. Peace. Kiss, kiss.